Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Shad and Corey here as your host, and we're talking today with West Red Lake Gold Mines. West Red Lake Gold Mines is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker WRLG and on the OTCQB under the ticker WRLGF. And we're joined today with the Vice President of Communications for West Red Lake Gold Mines, Gwen Preston. Gwen, always great to get you on the show to get an update on the Madsen project. Now, the mine is getting closer and closer to going into production for people following along with this story. And in a recent update from Shane, the CEO of the company, he mentioned you got 185 employees on the ground, 50 contractors. And just as a reminder, this mine, based on the PFS that came out in January, is going to kick off about $70 million per year in free cash flow. And that's based at $2,200 gold. Obviously, people that follow the gold price know we're a lot higher than $2,200, so it's going to be even more profitable. But there's been a slight overhang in the stock, Gwen, and I just want to get this out on the table. It came around February 18th when you announced that you were going to do another private placement, and you've upsized it since then to $20 million, but the market cap of West Red Lake Gold Mines fell by about 50, so a little bit of an outsized reaction in the marketplace. I think a lot of this stems from people worried about why this raise happened. Is there a challenge with the mine? Could you clear the air on why the company did the raise and what the funds will be used for?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. Always great to chat with you. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it for sure. We here absolutely acknowledge that it took some people by surprise. I think the best capture of why we did it is that we are as excited as anybody, probably more excited than most, about the opportunity here, the upside. I mean, you mentioned, the free cash flow, and that's based on a financial model that uses a $2,200 long-term gold price. We're doing the thing that we had the goal of doing when West Red Lake bought the Madsen Mine, which is putting a new gold mine into production in a rising gold market. And it's one of very few gold mines coming into production from single asset companies in that context. So it's all happening. We're really excited about the upside and about what the current gold price means for how much we're going to be able to mine there, and how Madsen is going to work. But you can't focus only on upside. As a management team, what we need to do is manage. And so there's quite a few factors that come into play there. Yes, we still have the debt facility that we signed in January, and that is the capital needed to put the mine into production. But when you're in a context where options strengthen, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we have those options. And by options, there's all kinds of things that could refer to. Let's look at the M&A market out there, right? Look at the number of bidders that there were on the Newmont assets. That's not like a number that's public, but people who are in the industry understand that there was a huge number of companies that bid on all of those assets. There is an appetite for producing assets. If we are seen as looking a little weak because we're just able to fund ourselves into production, that gives others an opportunity to prey on us. Our job as management is to deliver upside for our shareholders. Financial strength enables that in a way that almost nothing else does. So financial strength to be in a better position should there be any M&A approaches, to be in a position to take advantage of acquisition opportunities that we see out there, to have the option to do more or shift plans with underground development as we go. That's the kind of flexibility, that's the kind of options financial strength enables. And so if you compare us to 2 weeks ago, I know the share price is down. I know the market cap has obviously taken a hit, but just on an apples to apples basis, in terms of our ability to perform, we're in a better position. Having the extra financial capacity, the extra financial strength just puts us in a better position. We knew that the market wasn't going to love it. We did get a lot of interest in the financing. We were sort of 3.5 times oversubscribed on our initial offer. So that suggests that there is good appetite out there amongst investors for what I said, the rare single asset company putting a new gold mine into production in this market. Absolutely appreciate that current shareholders did not like it. Felt a bit surprised by it for sure, and expected that we didn't need more. What I think is really important to underline is that this is not because things are going wrong at the mine site. The schedule that we've been speaking to for the last year remains completely in place. We are now probably halfway through mining our bulk sample. The mill will turn on very soon to process that bulk sample in the month of March. We'll put out the results of that bulk sample early in April. Really important results because our entire premise is that we can mine Madsen successfully using the approach that we're leaning on, which is appropriate definition drill spacing for Red Lake, about 7 meters, and then appropriate mining methods. And if our approach does enable us to deliver expected tons and grade to the mill, that validates the entire thesis. And so those bulk sample results, first half of April, we are still on track for that. While we mine the bulk sample, we are building up stockpiles on surface because once you start the mill going, you want to make sure that you have that flexibility, options, right? I'm going to keep coming back to those same words because they are how you manage the complexity of putting a mine into production. So we're building up those stockpiles, and after the bulk sample is processed and the stockpiles are sufficient, we will roll into putting mineralized material through the mill. And absolutely, in the middle of this year, we will do that, and then we will ramp up the number of tons going through the mill all through the second half of the year. So the schedule is completely on track. We haven't changed that. There are not things going wrong at the mine. This was about managing what could potentially happen, but really just about the fact that financial strength creates options that are important, that help unlock the upside that we're all so excited about.
So, Gwen, I get the whole aspect of having that optionality, having a balance sheet so that you're not a takeover target or you're not subject to outside forces. But fact of the matter is, look, I'm sure the same emails you get that we get, people care about getting this into production. You keep releasing really good drill results, really good economics on this asset, but yet they're not moving the needle because everyone cares so much about the production aspect here. So is there some other optionality that you can do in terms of your overall spend and all the work that you're doing to move this into production that can more focus on the production side of things so that shareholders here and now can benefit from the actual startup of the mine rather than all this other money that's being spent that seems like you're running through a lot of money that clearly isn't moving the needle on the share price basis?
So we actually aren't spending money that isn't about putting the mine into production. Really. I mean, except for perhaps my budget as the person who does communications, that is ostensibly the only money, and we're limited on that as well, because that's the only money that is being spent that is not about putting this mine into production. The mantra at the Madsen mine site right now is all focus needs to be on activities that help us move mineralized tons out of the mine. So there is so much opportunity to unlock at the Madsen mine site. There's so many exploration targets that deserve attention. Mines are interesting machines. So there's lots of parts of that machine where we have ideas for, ways to shift or change, improve, things to test. None of those things are happening right now. The full focus of the company is on getting this mine into production. And the fact that we're fully focused on that is why we remain on schedule. And so, yeah, we really want to start producing gold. And we're going to produce gold from the bulk sample next month. I mean, it's almost this month. Today's the last day of February as we record this. So in March, we will produce our first gold from the bulk sample. And then we'll be in a position to just roll forward from there. So I understand completely, because it's sort of the story, the conversation that I have every day, that often the re-rate that companies experience when they go from being a developer to being a producer, that usually happens as a company gets closer to first production. It happens during the construction phase. Some of the studies that have been done, like Lobo Tigre did a study where he called it the pre-production sweet spot. Those studies have usually focused on going from construction decision to first pour. And that's when that re-rate happens as you go from building a mine to operating a mine. Madsen is a different case. This is a mine that we bought that was built, but that needed a bunch of work. And because of that reversed setup, so to speak, we had to approach things differently. We raised money to do the work that we knew was needed, and we've been pushing that work along, and we've been getting ourselves ready. Because the asset has the history that it has, we never expected the market to give us credit for putting it into production before we did it. We're not going to do that re-rate in the lead up to first gold because the asset as we all know, failed 2.5 years ago under the prior operator. So we never expected really to get the re-rate in the lead up to first gold. Instead, we very strongly believe that there's the potential for that to happen as we demonstrate success putting this thing into production. So I think that demonstration starts with the results of the bulk sample, and it carries through as we ramp up production in the second half of the year, and then start just, through 2026, just doing it reliably at the costs that we say we're going to do it. So we're fully focused on getting gold out of the ground. It is the be-all, end-all of this office, every one of us, every day. We're so close. We're really, really close. We believe that this financing increased our financial strength, and that is a really important thing to do when we're so close. So we believe we're in a better position than we were 2 weeks ago, and we believe that as we go through these next key milestones, the bulk sample and then rolling into ramp up, we believe that we will earn back the market capitalization that we lost, and I think quite a bit more than that, as we become a rare new gold producer from a single asset operator in this gold market that we're experiencing.
Yeah, Gwen, I think you summarized that well. I think it's become a show me story. And as you do the bulk sample and produce gold and test the mill out and then ramp up throughout the course of the second half of the year, I think once you demonstrate that and the gold starts coming out, I think the re-rating happens at that point in time. Let's talk about all the work going on then by the team. I know that the connection drift, which we've talked about in prior episodes, that connects the two different areas of the mine and takes away some bottlenecks, is about 80% complete, if I read that correctly recently. But what other work is the team doing in this final stage as you get closer to it? I mean, if you want to put a little more color on the bulk sample and what that means, that's fine. But what other work needs to happen to get you ready to really, I don't want to say flick the switch, but basically ramp up into production?
Yeah, for sure. So, and it's interesting that you use that term flip the switch, because this is truly like the opposite of like the switch that has to be flipped is turning on the mill, right? That's the big switch. And we're getting close to turning that on for the first time for the bulk sample. Other than that, in terms of the underground, I mean, we are basically a mining company that is just not yet quite producing gold, because like you noted at the beginning, we have 185 people on site, and a good chunk of those are underground operating every day. They're driving access to the zones that we either are mining as part of the bulk sample, are mining as part of establishing stockpiles on surface, or will be mining in the near term. So we're establishing access to all the areas. We're doing the mining. So all of those things are going. The focus right now is really on making sure that we ramp up the pace of all of those operations sufficiently, right? We have to be able to, we're mining. It's been really interesting. If you look back at that site update that we put out, I believe it was a couple weeks ago. One of the things that I included in that site update was meters of underground development. And it was a chart that showed the increase in the underground development over the last year. And I think that's a really important chart. Ramping up the pace at which you can blast and move material safely and accurately is a huge accomplishment. Like you can't flip a switch on that kind of thing. You have to find people, you have to bring them on site. You have to realize that the reality of hiring people means that not everybody works out. So some of those people you hire, train, and then quite soon send them packing again. And then you have to go through the process and find new people. And then you have to onboard them in terms of culture, operations, and then bring everybody up to speed on the same page. And so that chart is really important. We are just increasing our ability to operate underground, blast and move more tons for access and for mining. And so the underground side is just truly an evolving beast. It's getting bigger and it's getting faster each day. And that's why when we turn the mill on, first for the bulk sample and then not long after for just regular processing, we will be able to feed that mill. That's the entire focus of the site. And you can capture that all in sort of operational readiness, right? Operational readiness is, are you actually ready to feed all of the different components that are necessary in a mine? So that's underground access development, that's underground mining, that's personnel, that's equipment, that's procurement of supplies, that's HR, that's having a camp, that's having a mine drive. There's so many components that feed into that. And those are the systems that we've been building, refining over the last few months, and that we continue to really focus on right now. Those are the things that enable ramp up to go smoothly. What we're really focused on now is making sure that ramp up in the second half of this year is as smooth as it can be. And that's, like I've said a few times in this conversation already, mines are complicated. And so there's a lot of details that need to be addressed as you do everything you can to prepare for a smooth ramp up. That's the focus at site right now, making sure that we have the ability to ramp up smoothly in the second half of this year.
So let's tie in some of these recent drill results then. Very good drill results. Again, headline numbers, pretty much all the drill results. Again, this is definition drilling here. These are all good drill results that you're putting out. But again, the market kind of slow, if at all, to react to these things. Is it changing at all this development play? And is it changing at all the costs that are going into this development?
So those drill results, I was happy to see that we did actually get a nice response to those drill results. I mean, I would say that it's pretty common for development companies who are doing this kind of definition drilling. So drilling into known resources to tighten the drill spacing so that you can do accurate stope design. You can engineer your mine accurately. You often don't get much response to those results because the market's like, we knew those tons were there. Now we just know more about those tons. The knowing more is incredibly important if you want to be able to mine accurately and therefore effectively, but the market often doesn't give credit. Now, on that particular day, the market did give us some credit. We moved, so we were up as much as 10% in the day. I think we closed up about 7, which was lovely to see. I know that doesn't completely reverse the losses. It just wasn't, it was a bit of a turn against some of those losses from the financing. So the definition drilling, I didn't mention that when I was talking about things happening on site because it is just part of the process. When I talk about ramping up the mine means definition drilling, engineering the stopes, planning when they're going to be mined, going in, mining them, processing them. That's the whole universe of how it works. So the definition drilling is ongoing. Seeing those results, seeing 114 grams per ton over 10 meters, what we really liked about those results is that it was such a lovely reminder that this is Red Lake. The reason people have been mining here for 100 years and have pulled 30 million ounces of gold out of the ground in Red Lake is because it can be some very, very good mineralization. And what's kind of pertinent for this conversation is the way that you mine it successfully is by doing all of that definition drilling. And the definition drilling helps you understand exactly where the veins are, where the mineralized chutes are. And through that knowledge, if you therefore are drilling and then mining in the right spots, then you get some of the hummers, like the 1,600 gram per ton intercept that we were able to announce this week. That for us was just really validating. It's like, yep, this is why we're here. This is why we're doing that, because that kind of mineralization exists. It's part of the Madsen deposit. And if anything, the definition drilling is more likely to reveal it because that's what Red Lake mineralization is all about. So the market may or may not pay attention to our definition drilling. We pay a lot of attention to our definition drilling for engineering and for, just like I say, reminders that this is why we're so excited to mine this deposit.
Well, Gwen, just to that point, I mean, yeah, that was a bang up hole. Like you say, a 1,600 gram meter hole. So very impressive. And it just reminds people of what's possible in the Red Lake area as far as geologically. I guess we've spent so much time on the ramp up and getting to production, and that is first and center. That is what people care about. But I want to give you just 1 minute just to talk about the upside potential, because later in the year, you will be generating revenues. Even if people don't believe it now, when they finally start seeing it and the gold is flowing and the revenues are coming in, you'll be able to get back to true exploration again. And so just maybe highlight some of the blue sky targets that you have once the revenues are coming in that you can get back to turning some drills for exploration.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm so excited to do that. And I know Will, who you two chat with quite regularly, and this audience hears from regularly, he is very excited. We have like a list of targets that we're really excited about testing in the second half of this year. So I'll start close to Madsen and sort of fan out from there. So if we just fan out from Madsen going up to the northeast, like along the sort of unconformity that basically is the structure that hosts the Madsen deposit, there were 2 areas that we drilled up to the northeast last year in 2024 that returned those are called like the North Shore and the Venus targets. Those returned some really, really interesting rocks, like big intercepts of alteration, exactly the kind of alteration that you expect to see in a Madsen zone. They didn't return high grades of gold, just small amounts, but at the same time, we were running this comprehensive soil sampling and mapping program on surface. And now with the results of those, what Will has been able to do is get better resolution on where the soil anomalies and some of the rock types line up relative to the drill holes that we've done. And basically, this is a bit of a classic story in exploration because exploration is an iterative process. It basically has just shifted those targets slightly to the west, really. We were drilling a little bit more to the east, and now they're a little bit more to the west, closer to some of the ultramafic units. Quite classically, in Red Lake, the best mineralization occurs in the footwall and hanging wall of small ultramafic units. And so understanding better resolution on where those ultramafic units are and seeing that both through mapping and through these soil anomalies on surface has Will pretty excited to get back up and drill the North Shore and Venus targets again later this year, because he really liked that alteration that he saw, and the fact that he has a better data defined target that's really close to there, that's giving him quite a bit of excitement. So that's just to the northeast. Now, if we move to the southwest of Madsen, of course, that's where we get to the Fork deposit, a known deposit. We put out a reinterpretation of the Fork deposit recently that shows that there's a high-grade core to that known body of mineralization. So we want to go and put some more holes into there. That's not so much exploration as it is defining what we think will be a near-term addition to our mineral inventory. So we'll get to that. Then, if we just move a little bit more out from the Madsen deposit, the whole west side of our land package is the Confederation rocks, right? Those are the rocks, like the Red Lake district is sort of half Confederation rocks and half Balmer assemblage. And for a long time, people assumed that the Confederation rocks didn't hold any gold, until a company called Great Bear proved that dramatically wrong. There had been other discoveries in the Confederation, but Great Bear really reminded everyone of the potential in the Confederation. So, of course, Will and his team did a really comprehensive soil sampling program across the Confederation rocks last year. We have some really interesting targets on that side of the property that we want to test. And then if we move over to Rowan, if you recall, we did a drill program at Rowan. We really constrained the deposit at Rowan to something that we were very confident in. So that left one opportunity at Rowan, which is to just expand the known deposit to pull in some of the surrounding intercepts that got left out of our conservative look at how to build that deposit. And so extension of the known Rowan deposit, that's one exploration target up there. And then Will has, kind of like North Shore and Venus, a long trend from Madsen. Will has defined some really promising looking targets, a long trend from Rowan that have never seen a drill hole and that have some really interesting data supporting them. So we are blessed with an abundance of targets that we really want to get out and test in the second half of the year.
All right, Gwen. So full circle, I know, and I'm sure you know, everybody wants to know more or less. Let's just recap the overall timelines then in terms of a ramp up schedule tied in with revenue, when revenue could start coming in and what the ramp up of revenue could look like. Because sometimes I think investors just think you start mining and all of a sudden all this revenue comes in. It's always a staged approach. So can you provide just a general time frame of what that revenue ramp up looks like, and address the big question being, is the company going to need to raise more money before you see this ramp up in revenue?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing because the directness, for sure, which is appropriate. I absolutely get it. So the timeline is turn on the mill shortly, process the bulk sample. That will produce gold. That will produce revenue. The way that gold sales work is you produce the gold and you immediately sell it. It's not like you hold on to it. So that will produce some revenue from processing the bulk sample, even just in March. From there, we don't want to promise that we will go straight into putting mineralized material consistently through the mill, because we want to go through that first process first, but it will be a short time frame between processing that bulk sample and starting to just put mineralized material through the mill. So for sure, by the middle of the year, we will be regularly putting mineralized material through the mill. And then our mine plan has us processing 800 tons per day. So the ramp up is to 800 tons per day. You start smaller, you get there. That is the ramp up through the second half of the year. And we're completely on schedule to be able to feed that ramp up schedule. And as soon as we start putting that mineralized material through the mill, that's when the revenue starts. And especially at these gold prices, even that 400 tons per day that covers a lot of the costs. If you just look through the PFS and you start to look at, it's all broken down in the PFS. So you look at sort of operating costs versus free cash flow, you can crunch the numbers and realize that, starting at that initial rate is about where we need to be, especially at current gold prices, to cover our costs. So that is the answer that you're looking for right there. And we're really excited because we're so darn close and we are pushing so hard to get there. We're really focused on delivering gold into this market.
Well, it is an exciting time for the company, Gwen, and we'll wrap it up there for today. But there's so much news going on, and there's so many different areas going on, from the definition drilling to the connection drift to the bulk sample to getting that in. That then it starts, like you say, literally tomorrow. I mean, as far as March, we're here tomorrow. So there's a lot going on with this company. So for people listening in, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you over to the West Red Lake Gold Mines website, straight to their news section, where you can sign up for updates, or you can just follow along as the news drops. I'm sure there's going to be a bombardment of news coming out to the market over the next few weeks, few months. So definitely follow along with everything the company is doing. Gwen, keep us posted. We'll get either you or Will or Shane or somebody back on for an update at each one of these different milestones. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Likewise. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate the opportunity.